I've got to stop slacking. Hi guys, this is Connie, back with Friday's rendition of Connie Reads Another Fine Myth. Thank you for your patience and different random things that have been happening. We're on chapter 14, so let's get into it. A quote. A little help at the right time is better than a lot of help at the wrong time. I'm so ignorant, I don't know who that is. Tevye. So that way you can spell it and tell me in the comments how it's supposed to be pronounced. Come on, Oz, I shouted desperately, overturning a fruit stand in the path of the crowd. Now that it seemed my fellow humans were safe from Oz, my concern returned to making sure he was safe from them. I don't believe it, Oz shouted as he darted past. What? I called, sprinting after him. In one day, I believed both a devil and an imp. Tell you what, kid, if we get out of this, I give you my permission to kick me hard, right in the rump, twice. It's a deal, I panted. This running was starting to tax my stamina. Unfortunately, the crowd didn't seem tired at all. That was enough to keep me running. Look, kid, Oz was pointing excitedly. We're saved! I followed his finger. A uniformed patrol was marching, sauntering down the street ahead of us. It's about time, I grumbled, and I was relieved nonetheless. The crowd saw the soldiers too. Their cries increased in volume as they redoubled their efforts to reach us. Come on, kid, step on it, Oz called. We're not safe yet. Step on what? I asked, passing him. Our approach to the patrol was noisy enough that by the time we got there, the soldiers had all stopped moving and were watching the chase. One of them, a bit less unkempt than the others, had shouldered his way to the front of the group and stood sneering at us with folded arms. From his manners, I guessed he was an officer. There was no other explanation for the others allowing him to act the way he was. I skidded to a stop in front of him. We're being chased, I panted. Really? He smiled. Let me handle this, kid, Oz mumbled, brushing me aside. Are you the officer in charge, sir? I am, the man replied. Well, it seems that these citizens, he pointed disdainfully at our pursuers, intended us bodily harm, a blatant disregard for your authority, sir. The mob was some 10 feet distant and stood glaring alternatively at us and the soldiers. I was gratified to observe that at least some of them were breathing hard. I suppose you're right, the officer yawned. We should take a hand in this. Watch this, kid, Oz whispered, nudging me in the ribs as the officer stepped forward to address the crowd. All right. You all know it is against the law for citizens to inflict injuries on each other, he began. The crowd began to grumble darkly, but the officer waved them into silence as he continued. I know, we don't like it either. If it were up to us, we'd let you settle your own differences and spend our time drinking. But it's not up to us. We have to follow the laws the same way you do. And the laws say only the military can judge and punish the citizenry. See, I whispered, there are some advantages to civilization. Shut up, kid, Oz hissed back. So even though I know you'd love to beat these two to a bloody pulp, we can't let you do it. They must be hanged in accordance with the law. What? I'm not sure if I said it or Oz or if we cried it out in unison. Whatever it was nearly drowned out in an enthusiastic roar of the crowd. A soldier seized my wrist and twisted them painfully behind my back. Looking about, I saw the same thing had happened to Oz. Needless to say, this was not the support we had been hoping for. What did you expect? The officer sneered at us. If you wanted help from the military, you shouldn't have included us on your list of customers. If we had had our way, we would have strung you up a week ago. The only reason we held back was these yokels had given you extra time, and we were afraid of a riot if we tried anything. Our wrists were secured by thongs now. We were slowly being herded toward a lone tree in front of one of the open-air restaurants. Has anyone got some rope? The officer called to the crowd. Just our luck. Somebody did. It was passed rapidly to the officer, who began ceremoniously tying nooses. Psst, kid, Oz whispered. What now? I mumbled bitterly. My faith in Oz's advice was at an all-time low. When they go to hang you, fly. What? Despite myself, I was seized with new hope. Come on, kid, wake up. Fly, like I taught you on the trail. They'd just shoot me down. Not Fly away, dummy. Just fly. Hover at the end of the rope and twitch. They'll think you're hanging. I thought about it. Hard. It might work, but I noticed they were tossing their nooses over a lower limb of the tree. Oz, I can't do it. I can't levitate us both. I'm not that good yet. Not both of us, kid. Just you. Don't worry about me. But, Oz, keep my disguise up, though. If they figure out I'm a demon, they'll burn the bodies. Both of them. But Oz, we were out of time. Rough hands shoved us forward and started fitting the nooses over our heads. I realized with a start I had no time to think about Oz. I needed all my concentration to save myself, if there was even time for that. I closed my eyes and sought desperately for a force line in the air. There was one there. Faint, but there. I began to focus on it. The noose tightened around my neck, and I felt my feet leave the ground. I felt panic rising in me and forced it down. Actually, it was better this way. They should feel weight on the rope as they raised me. I concentrated on the force line again. Focus. Draw the energies. Redirect them. I felt a slight loosening of the noose. Remembering Oz's lectures on Controlled, I held the energies right there and tried an experimental breath. I could get air. Not much, it was true, but enough to survive. What else did I have to do? Oh yes, I had to twitch. I thought back to how a squirrel badger acted when caught in snare. I kicked my leg slightly and tried an experimental tremor. It had an overall effect of tightening the noose. I decided to try another tactic. I let my head loll to one side and extend my tongue out of the corner of my mouth. It worked. There was a sudden increase in volume of the catcalls from the crowd to reward my efforts. I held that pose. My tongue was rapidly drying out, but I forced my mind away from it. To avoid involuntarily swallowing, I tried to think of other things. Poor Oz. For all his gruff criticism and claims of not caring for anyone else but himself, his last act had been to think of my welfare. I promised myself that when I got down from here... What would happen when I got down from here? What would they do with the bodies in this town? Did they bury them? It occurred to me it might be better to hang than be buried alive. The law says they're supposed to hang there until they rot. The officer's voice seemed to answer my thoughts and brought my mind back to the present. Well, they aren't hanging in front of the Law's restaurant, came an angry voice in response. Tell you what, we'll come back at sundown and cut them down. Sundown? Do you realize how much money I could lose before sundown? Nobody wants to eat at a place where a corpse dangles its toes in his soup. I've already lost most of them with the lunch rush. It occurs to me that if the day's business means that much to you, you should be willing to share a little of the profit. So that's the way it is it? Oh, very well. Here, for your troubles. There was the sound of coins being counted out. That isn't very much. I have to share with my men, you know. You drive a hard bargain. I didn't know bandits had officers. More coins were counted, accompanied by the officer's chuckle. It occurred to me that instead of studying magic, I should be devoting my time to bribes and graft. It seemed to work better. Men, the officer called, cut this carrion down and haul it out of town. Leave it at the city limits as a warning to anyone else who would seek to cheat the citizens of Twixt. You're too considerate, the restaurant owner's voice was edged in sarcasm. Think nothing of it, sinister. Think nothing of it, citizen, the officer sneered. I barely remembered to stop flying before they cut the rope. I bit my tongue as I started into the ground and risked sneaking it back into my mouth. No one noticed. Unseen hands grabbed me under the armpits and by the ankles, and the journey began to the city limits. Now that I knew I wasn't going to be buried, my thoughts returned to my failure. First, I would have to do something to Frumple. What? I wasn't sure. But something. I owed Oz that much. Couldn't I restore Quigley and enlist his aid? Maybe I could restore Quigley and enlist his aid. He was supposed to be a demon hunter. He was probably better equipped to handle a devil than I was. Then again, remembering Quigley, that might not be the valid assumption. Then there was Istvan. What was I going to do about him? I wasn't sure I could beat him with Oz. I wasn't sure I could beat him with Oz's help. Without it, I couldn't stand a chance. This should be far enough. Shall we hang them again? I froze at the suggestion. Fortunately, the voice at my feet had another idea. Why bother? I haven't seen an officer yet who'd move 100 paces from a bar. Let's just dump him here. There was a general chorus of assent, and the next minute I was flying through the air again. I tried to relax for the impact, but the ground knocked the wind out of me again. If I was going to continue my efforts to master flying, I'd have to devote more time to the art of forced landings. I lay there motionless. I couldn't hear the soldiers anymore, but I didn't want to run the risk of sitting up and betraying the fact I wasn't dead. Are you going to lay there all day, or are you going to help me get untied? My eyes flew open involuntarily. Oz was sitting there, grinning at me. There was only one sensible thing to do, and I did it. I fainted. And that's chapter 14. Have a great weekend, and be careful with that and enjoy, please and thank you. Bye.